Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of week 6. In this lesson, we are going to finalize HTML forms, looking at other input types and other elements that we use to collect information from users. My name is Mildred. In the last lesson, we have seen various input types. We have created a form that we can use to collect information. We have a button, and we said that we can style this form using CSS to control the display, the beauty, all of the margins and paddings and everything we want on this form. Let's create more fields to illustrate the different types of inputs we have and also other types of form elements that we use. We want to, let's say we're done with personal information, we want to collect other information, like we have an input type of tel. If we want to get telephone number, we can use input type, the value of the type attribute to be equal to tel, like this. Okay, so if you refer to your course resource, you'll see various input types and what they are used for. Let's look at other elements, like when you want to have options for a user and you want the user to only be able to select one of several options. Let's say we have the sex or gender. So let's say label 4 equal to, we'll say sex, and let's enter their sex here and close label, and then we'll put input, and now the type is going to be radio. So this will give you a radio button. Let's say name is equal to sex, and then now we have a value attribute and we want the value that is sent when this option is selected. So let's say we want the value female to be sent when this option is selected, and this option is going to be female. We'll write it beside the input field. Alright, you can always put a forward slash to end a void element. Then we'll do the same thing for male. One thing with the radio button is you want to link them together so that you can only select one of several options. The name attribute must have the same value. So now the value attribute now is going to be what is sent, and we want the user to see male as the option here. Right, so when we refresh our page, we'll see we have a radio button with sex, male, female. We can also use the break tag like we did in the previous lesson. We use a break here to put it on the new line, and then we can use a break here. So CSS can help us easily format this without having to be using break tags all over the place. Alright, so I'm going to use double break here, then I'll put the next one. After the field set, I can put a double break. Alright, so when we refresh, we can see that our page is more formatted like that. So we have sex, male, female. You choose one option. So when you put the button, it only takes one of two options. So you can have several options here. You can change this type to be checkbox, so it will have a checkbox and the user can check several options, not just one. So let's say we're having something like the person wants to select choices of something, not gender, and the name now is going to be, you can have the same name, you can have different names, it depends on what you're doing, and then the value that will be sent when it is checked. But let's just look at how checkbox looks. So you can select more than one option with checkbox. Okay, and so when you have an application that allows you to select multiple options, you can have a checkbox that you just check everything that you need. So we have several other input types. Refer to your course resource, research to see the different values of the type attributes that you can use. So let's look at the select element. Let's say label for, let's say course, or let's write something like department, and then the name here will be, so the students are to select their department. We use a select element like this to have a drop down menu, and we'll close select. Between the start and end select tag, we use option to put all of the options that are displayed in the drop down menu. So I'll put option. The option has a value attribute. The value will take the value that you want to be sent to the database, or that you want the processing scripts to see when this option is selected. So let's say value is equal to sciences, and then let's just put sciences and we'll close option, and then we'll have several options as much as we want. All right, now when you have option, by default the first one is selected. You can put selected for whatever you want to be first, like selected like this. Okay, and so this will be displayed first. Let's change these values here to be at, so we'll just randomly put anything, and then I put selected here for the psychology. And when we have this, let me do this so that we can stop having the form submit. Okay, so we have the psychology selected by default, and the reason is because I put selected here. If we don't put selected, the first one is going to be selected by default when we refresh our page. So we have sciences. But if you want to have that kind of drop down menu that has something that says choose here, you can put option value is empty. You can put selected here, disabled also. So when the user switches from here, they have to take a value and then they put you put something like choose one, or if you want multiple, depending on the attributes that you use. Okay, then we close option. And when we come here, you see that choose one is what is displayed. It's disabled, so you can't choose that, and then you can select any of this. All right, so we have other form elements. Like you can see that this is an input field for a text type. Let's say you want to have a big box where you want to type a lot of information, or let's say you're applying for a job, you have this big box for cover letter and you want to create that kind of box. What you do is use a text area element like this. We'll close text area. Now this text area element takes attributes that will determine the size of the box. So let's say we have rows, let's say we want 4, and we want columns, we'll put calls, and we'll say we want it to have 50, and then we not forget to put the name of this to be, let's say, other details. We want the ID of this to be details, so we can have a label here to say label for details, and we write other close label. So we have the name attributes, we have the ID attributes, then we have the rows and the calls. We can put placeholder, anything you want to do here. So research all of the attributes that we have, refer to your lesson resource. And when we come here, we can see a big text field here for other details. So we can still use a break tag like we did for the select, and then we use a break here, we break twice here, and then we can see everything on the new line. So you know what the display is. When you say inline element, it means that it just takes as much space as it needs. The next element continues on the same line. When we say block level element, is every time you start the element, it starts on a new line. You'll see all of that in our CSS course. But now it's coming along and you can see the form that we have. We have this to take more input. You can always expand this to be bigger if you want. You can make it smaller if you want. As you type, it expands. Okay. We can also have something that gives us auto suggestions. Like you see those ones where you start typing and it gives you suggestions of all the names you have in a database already. So you can do that using data list is what we call it. So let's create a label for, and we want this to be, let's say, course suggestion. Let's say we want to select their course, so we'll call this course suggestion, and then we'll say course. Let's call this course. We'll close label. Now we have a data list element, and we need to have an input element first. This input now will have a list attribute, and the value for this list attribute is going to be equal to the value for, let's have a data list element, and we have an ID attribute, and then we put the value courses. So the input list and the data list must have the same value for their list and ID attributes like that. So we have the list, then we can now put the ID here to bind this input to the label is equal to course suggestion, and then you can give this also a name. The name is course suggestion like that. Then we now have the data list, the ID is courses, and then we can close data list, and then between the start and end data list we have option. Now you can choose to have a close tag for the option or not, so we just have option and value like this. Option value equal to, let's say, Python. Then we're not closing the option tag, we just leave it as a start tag. Value is equal to, let's say, PHP, and let's copy this and do for 2 others. So let's have JavaScript, and let's have MySQL. So when you come to the page and you start typing, when you start typing JavaScript, it only gives you the JavaScript suggestion. Okay, when you start typing P, it gives you all of the suggestions of what you are typing. Now this is better when you have a long list of things people can type. Let's say, for instance, this is a secured app and the admin logs in and wants to start typing emails for users. So it auto suggests the user, and then they're able to click when they start typing. So when you start, you can click this to complete and makes it faster. So there are several things you need to know. The different attributes for the form element, you need to know the attributes for the different fields that we have, and also the other form elements that we have. Refer to your course resource, try them out and see what they mean. For the form element itself, you can also give it a name attribute, you can give it an ID attribute. There are other constraint attributes that the form takes, which helps the form to do certain things. For instance, when we say we want to set autocomplete to off. So when you put autocomplete and you set it to on, it means that when you have filled this form before on this system, the previous values that you are filled in will autocomplete on the form field. If you set it to off, you don't want it to be autocomplete. And then you can also specify no validate, that when this form is submitted, it should not be validated like this. So there are several elements and several attributes that the element take, and there are several reasons why the attributes are necessary in some applications and not necessary in others. I want you to do your research and go deeper, but we have the general concepts discussed, and in the advanced course we are going to look at them in details. Thank you and see you next week.